Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a message for Scorpio sun signs, or if you have significant Scorpio placements in your chart and are needing a masculine energy to work with or balance within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Scorpio, we're going to start off with the overall context of the reading, and we have here these two really interesting cards, the Eyes of the Eagle and the Covenant. Because very clearly it's like there's an energy here that's like looking closely at some sort of contract. It does say sacred here, sacred contract. But it's kind of feeling like this, the eagle energy, it kind of feels like somebody else to me, like some other, like a person perhaps, or like it could be like you're getting a download or something like that, but it kind of feels very strongly like an air sign. So it could be an Aquarius, but it doesn't have to be. That's just what the eagle represents to me. It's a very Aquarian energy where it's like there's somebody coming in to look very closely at some sort of contract that you have. And I want to say that this is kind of like a close relationship of yours, for instance, right? Like I feel like this one's more of like a stranger or like somebody who you don't know very well or something like that, but they're like, it kind of comes in with this energy of like a lawyer or something like that, or perhaps like this is kind of looking like a will for some reason. So it could be like somebody in your past perhaps, or like somebody that you know, perhaps a family member has passed. There's some of that energy coming through here, and it's kind of like it's almost like a lawyer or like somebody, whoever like reads the will. I don't know what the term is for that person, that job or whatever. It's like they're coming in to like read it. That's kind of how it's looking to me, and through that, it's illuminating something. And I want to say it's perhaps like some sort of like stagnation that's being cleared, or something like that. And it doesn't have to be a will, right? That's just one example. It just feels like, and it doesn't even have to have anything to do with like legal documentation. It could be very spiritual as well, right? Like some sort of karmic contract is how it's coming through, especially because you have these two cards as well, the trees and Pluto. So Pluto just moved into retrograde. So it's in Capricorn right now. And so that is bringing in this sort of energy of contracts or like lessons or perhaps karmic contracts, right? But I feel like it's coming to an end, or there's some sort of ending happening in this dynamic. And with the trees card, it's kind of this. So trees represent to me family, always like family trees. But I feel like there's also this energy of like part of the stagnation perhaps is around or surrounding the tree, whoever that is. It feels like a significant person perhaps, or like if it's not as person, it could be like a pattern that was passed down through generations or something like that, right? Like a family history or something like that. I don't know exactly what that is, but so that's the overall context. We'll get into the actual cards now. So the first two cards here, you have the Dust Devil, moving out of stagnation, and the Wailing Tree, reconciliation. So I feel like this is the family member or something like that. So it could be somebody who has passed recently, right? Like I feel like this has already happened. Or if it's not recent, it's like you are revisiting this relationship or this person or something like that. It's like it's coming back around because we are in Mercury retrograde and in Pluto retrograde. So things are coming back around is kind of how it's feeling. And it could be something to do with like a past family like a family member who's passed that had perhaps, I want to say that they were actually very cherished by you is kind of how I was feeling. Like somebody that you really loved and cared for very deeply is kind of how it's feeling, right? Somebody that was very important to you This card to me always looks like a feminine figure, but today it's actually coming through very masculine. So it could be like a father or like a grandfather or something like that, because you have here these 3 cards coming out next. Saturn, the names, and ghosts, right? So I feel like the Saturn card is kind of like, to me, Saturn is a very masculine energy, right? It's hard, and it's a very slow moving kind of energy, meaning it's very long term. It talks about discipline, so it could be that this person, this significant relationship of yours, was very important in establishing like structure and foundation in your life, right? Like establishing a lot of stability is kind of how it's coming through. With the names, that's just emphasizing to me that there's it's a specific person is kind of how it's coming. It's not like a general energy. This feels like a very specific person. And the ghost is emphasizing to me that there's some sort of attachment still. And it's not, I'm not at all saying that this person, because it's like, I feel like you cared about them, right? There's somebody that you cared about and perhaps still miss very deeply. But it could be that, like, with the ghosts, I see this as attachments that prevent us from moving forward is kind of how it's coming through. So it's like, perhaps there's an attachment on both ends, perhaps, like, of not wanting to let go of this one, somebody from the past, like somebody who has passed, because it's like, I was kind of getting like this energy of like they're seated beside you. They're like your right-hand man, or kind of like that kind of energy. Like they're the ones that you like they have like a permanent place beside you is kind of how that's feeling. But they've already passed. That's sort of the emphasis of this. And what's really interesting here with the tarot cards coming out next is you have the Ace of Emotions and the Ace of Voices. So I feel like this is you, Scorpio, the Ace of Voices. And you also have the Muse of Voices in between these 2 cards. So whenever I see the Muses in this deck, this talks to me about sort of a challenge that involves 2, right? Like 2 people coming together in order to solve a problem, for instance. It could be more, but it's just emphasizing these 2 energies. So again, more of this air sign energy, right? There's perhaps, or I'll just leave it like that. Take it if it resonates. But what I'm seeing here is kind of like this one. I'm seeing you as being the Ace of Emotions, which I always see as sort of like an energy of coming up for air, like being underwater, which could be a very emotional place, right? Like being in a very emotional place, perhaps experiencing grief of some sort, but then coming up for air. And it's like, I feel like this one is perhaps encouraging you to come with them, or like to follow them is kind of how it's feeling. Because usually I see this one as like looking back, but today it's like they're looking back to see if you are coming along with them is kind of how it's feeling. And I feel like, especially with the next couple cards coming out, this light here is really important, because it's like they're showing you the way, or they're guiding you out of whatever sort of stuckness perhaps that you may be in. And it's really interesting here, and because it's the Muse of Voices, I feel like it's something that like you have to be willing to engage with as well, right? Because it involves 2. There has to be a cooperation between the 2 of you in order for this to be cleared, is kind of how it's feeling. And then the next cards to come out here, the 10 of Materials and the 10 of Inspiration. So this 10 of Materials is really interesting, because it's this tree here, right? So again, it feels like it's a past person, like somebody who has passed. But it doesn't have to be. It could be somebody who's alive, but perhaps they're in an energy of stuckness or something like that. Though, or it could be somebody that you've left behind in some way. Like with the ghost energy, it could be just somebody from your past that is no longer currently in your daily experience, but they're still alive in this world. So it could be any of those options, that kind of thing. Just like fit it to your life however it resonates. But with this 10 of materials, I have sort of this like, this is just a personal bias for me. Whenever I see this card, it's kind of like this tree is very much alive and thriving, is kind of how it's feeling. But because it's coming in with this energy of a wailing tree, it's kind of this energy of like, because I see these people around the tree as being almost like depleted, right? It's kind of like there's an energy of the people around here who are, their energy is being used by the tree in order to maintain the health of the tree, but the health of the individuals around it is not good, or whatever it is, right? It's like these ones are giving up their energy in order to maintain the health of this tree. And this tree here is one that is wailing, metaphorically, whatever that means. They're in perhaps a state of distress, or there's just I don't know exactly what this is. I feel like that'll be specific. It's just not an energy of well-being, is kind of how it's coming through. And again, if this is a past energy, right? If it's somebody who has passed already, perhaps they were like this in their life. Like when they were alive, there was this energy of like being unwell in some way. And it depleted the... That sounds really bad. It just kind of feels like there's this energy of like they took a lot of other people's energies in whatever way that is. It's kind of a tricky relationship dynamic. But anyways, it's like, I feel like it's somebody perhaps that you cared for, somebody that you obviously cherished, is kind of how it's coming through. But it feels like they're no longer in your life in whatever way, for whatever reason. But there's still perhaps an attachment, is kind of how it's feeling, right? And I feel like that's what this one here is trying to identify for you, the eyes of the eagle. They're coming in to look at the contract, like perhaps like the karmic contract, or the covenant between the two of you, the bond between the two of you, and whether or not it's actually good for you or not, is kind of how it's coming through. Or like why it is that this one's still hanging around when perhaps it's not, like they should no longer be attached to you, is kind of how it's feeling. They should no longer be attached to you, but somehow they are still. And I feel like that's part of, because this is a sun reading, I do feel that there is kind of like an action that you are needing to take, Scorpio, with this card coming out next, the 10 of inspiration. This does come in with this energy of like, it's coming in kind of two ways. So I'm seeing this as being like a person, right? It's like perhaps this is the wailing tree energy, where it's kind of like dominating in some way the energies of others, or something about their influence got others to fall in line, is kind of how that's feeling. But it doesn't have to be that exactly. It could also be something like, in order to remove the contract, or like to nullify it in some way, there would be perhaps a bit of a burden or an uphill climb, is kind of how that's feeling. But I feel like, or it just may not be comfortable at first, right? Even just like acknowledging it or having it acknowledged might be difficult or uncomfortable in some way. But the next card here you have is the Netcaster, which I really love. So first of all, the number 42 has been representing to me sort of breaking through boundaries, right? Like breaking through boundaries, or breaking patterns in some way, or breaking an established order of doing things. And especially with this card, it was kind of looking to me like, you know, the game Red Robin, I think it's called, that kids play, where you hold, like the kids hold hands, and then one person sort of tries to run through and break through the hands that are being held together. it's kind of coming in with that energy for some reason. And then with this card, I talk about this card as being sort of like, especially in sort of like family dynamics, there could be this energy of, if you notice here, the two animals that are caught in the net are the seahorse and the pufferfish. So the seahorse is kind of representing this energy of unconditional love. But I was also being reminded today of like the male seahorse is the one who carries the babies. So it was kind of coming in with this energy of androgyny, like an androgynous, I don't know, person or dynamic or something like that, that's representing unconditional love, or just like perhaps a role reversal, or again, just emphasizing like a masculine, perhaps father figure that was very nurturing in some way. And then tied in with that is this sort of pufferfish energy, which to me represents like being triggered by something, right? Like being startled, maybe. It's like they're both caught in the same net, which is really interesting because it's kind of like, I feel like if you're not necessarily aware of those dynamics, it can cause a lot of pain in sort of loving relationships that should be based on love, but somehow become based on perhaps trauma or triggers, right? Like it's like distinguishing between a trauma bond and then one that is unconditional love. That's sort of what this card is talking about, which is really difficult. That's a really tricky energy. Anyway, so I feel like this one, whoever this Eyes of the Eagle is, they're coming in to help identify that, is kind of how it's coming through. Especially with the next card out here is the World Cosmos, which always talks to me about like seeing the big picture or like getting a new way of seeing things, but it's also coming in with this energy of completion, right? Like completing a cycle, or like finally releasing whatever this sort of karmic or trauma bond energy is, like releasing that finally. Which is interesting because I do feel that there is still like this energy of caring for them, right? Or caring about them, of course. Like, even though it's based on sort of like this trauma energy, which is very difficult. Anyways, I'm going to leave that there. But the next cards to come out here, because you have here the Two of Emotions and then the Two of Voices, which is, these are like the very opposite energies, because I'm seeing this as being like, because again, I'm seeing you, Scorpio, as being sort of this Ace of Emotions, and then the Two of Emotions here, I feel like this is the relationship that is being highlighted for you. That's like, this is the relationship, again, that felt like a Two of Cups, perhaps in the past, but like you sort of being released from it and like coming up from the depths is kind of how I'm seeing this. Normally I love this card, but today it's feeling like it's like it was not what it seemed, or it was I don't know, there's something off about this energy, because the next card to come out is this Two of Voices here, right? Which is talking to me about detangling, like detangling yourself from whatever this energy is. Okay, and then the next one here, the next couple cards here. So you have here the Wall, Obstacles, and then the Garden of Venus, Rest and Renewal, which I love so much because it's kind of like, this is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? There has been some sort of obstacle that you weren't seeing a way out of, but now it's kind of showing itself, is kind of how it's coming through. And then I'm seeing you as sort of like, through this detangling process, you're able to like go through whatever this obstacle is into the Garden of Venus, which is coming through with, so Rest and Renewal. I rarely get rest with this card. It's more so just like a renewal, right? So it could be rest. It could be just feeling like rejuvenated, that kind of thing. But it's, most importantly, it's like being freed from whatever the obstacle is, or the stagnation, right? It's moving out of stagnation for this reading today, which is really lovely. And then you have here the Page of Inspiration, which I really love because I feel like this coming out after the Two of Voices, it's like your hair, your thoughts perhaps were tangled up with whatever this, like, I'm going to call it a karmic contract, but it doesn't have to be that intense. Just take that as it resonates. But being freed from that and then having all of this sort of new inspiration again, right? It's like all of this energy is in one. I see this as sort of like exploring creativity or like doing things that are really fun for you that have perhaps no sort of like obligation, right? It's something that you do because it's fun, not because you're obligated to do it. That's what this energy comes through with, the Page of Inspiration. And I love the colors of these cards today because, again, this Ace of Voices, the one who's bringing the truth or identifying some sort of trickiness in a relationship, perhaps. It's like the hair colors are the same, right? It's like, I feel like it's talking about just like vibrancy or being renewed in whatever creative or inspiring kind of task or thing that you've been working towards, perhaps, or whatever it is. And then you also have here the Queen of Voices and the Three of Materials. So again, I'm seeing this Queen of Voices as being the Aquarius energy. It doesn't have to be Aquarius, but because it's just coming through with all of this energy of like air and birds, right? There's a lot of bird energy around them. So it could be like a messenger of some sort. And again, it doesn't feel like there's any sort of like, I feel like you don't know them very well. It's almost like a stranger or like somebody who doesn't know you, but like can read through contracts or something like that. They have a particular skill in identifying these sorts of patterns, perhaps. And so I'm seeing this as sort of like they're retreating or like they're going back to what it is that they were doing. It doesn't necessarily feel like they're going to be super involved in your life, perhaps, but it's kind of just like they're almost just like untangling you from this net, right? Untangling you from this net, and then it's kind of like you're free to go. This dynamic perhaps is going to be, well, but that's the thing though, because you have here the Three of Materials. Perhaps sometime in the future, right? Because I feel like for the next part, like once you're sort of free from whatever this energy is, you're going to be in this energy for a while. The Page of Inspiration. I feel like this is going to be like the focus of what it is that you'll be working on in the next little while, right? Like just doing things that are fun and creative and inspiring for you that have no obligations to it, right? Because it's like you're freed from all contracts. So it's kind of like you can do what you want is what this is feeling like. So this one here, because it's coming out with the Three of Materials, and I always see this as being like ones who are intertwined in a very harmonious way, right? It comes through with like collaboration. So it could be that in the future, like down the line, further down the line, there's a potential for a collaboration of some sort with this one, but perhaps they're just at a distance because it's kind of like, it feels like they're like giving you space to explore this aspect, right? Because kind of like whatever it is that you would be working on with this one, it would require more of an investment is how it's coming through with the Three of Materials. So they're giving you space to sort of do this, right? Like explore some sort of creativity, while in the future there may be a potential or opportunity to collaborate with this one in some way, in some unexpected way, which is really interesting. Okay, Scorpio. So I'm going to leave the reading there. If you're interested in the extended, you can find the link in the description box below. We're going to talk about what else you may need to know about the situation. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.